Actually, I was very pleasantly surprised by, as you said, that they singled out First Nations women and migrant women and their particular needs in the women's health and safety initiatives. So it's funny, they get it, they almost get it. They
Almost.
almost they have bits where they've clearly listened to somebody and they've gone, yeah, okay, we'll do that. That sounds good. But there's, as you said, there's no overarching connection or vision to the narrative. There's no, yes, let's fix gender inequality over the next 4 years. It's such a missed opportunity on several levels for this budget and also for this government.
We talked earlier about the idea of a budget as a reflection of our priorities as a country, what we think is important, where we want to go. There's no sense of that. There's no sense of vision. There's no sense of ambition for the country. There's no sense of progress. There is less of a mean-spiritedness that we've seen in previous budgets from this government. Starting in 2013, we really did have a succession of very mean-spirited budgets. This one is less mean-spirited, but it really does feel like a veneer rather than a substantive shift. You know, this budget says that there's an election coming sometime in the next 12 months because there must be, but it doesn't actually seem like a change in spirit or a change in substance. There's nothing here that says who we want to be as a country instead.
It's a very safe budget. It's purely trying to play the cards right so that they get re-elected. Oh, look at how much we've done. Look at the way we've recovered, everything like that. Look at our target group. Yeah, we've checked the boxes. We gave it to women. We gave money to the aged care.
Infrastructure.
Yeah.
We're going to build some roads. We're going to build some rail. We haven't spoken about the infrastructure, but you know, let's not. But you're right, Rhiannon. It feels like we've had a focus group where we got a list of issues and we've spent some money on each of them.
Yeah, what's really interesting is this budget does not feel like an election budget. It feels like a bet hedging kind of budget where they've done just enough to, they happen to call an early election. They've got stuff to talk about. They've got stuff to sell to the electorate, but they've also sort of left wiggle room for a proper election budget early next year. Because they must call the election by May 21st next year, they might have to bring the budget forward to April the way they did in 2019. But then there is room for a second budget sort of coming up. So this doesn't feel like the final throwing everything at the kitchen sink kind of budget, you know, in terms of elections.
One of the interesting things there, and I think one of the hallmarks of this government over the last 4 or 5 years at least, has been the way in which they have doled out public money for political gain. So, you know, with the sports rorts, over $100 million, which went to politically expedient recipients. But over the same period, like over the last 4.5, 5 years, I think something in the order of $2.5 billion has gone towards, you know, through the community grants program, which has gone towards marginal or maybe electorates that we think we might win if we throw a little bit of money their way, but mostly to shore up our marginal electorates to make sure that we keep them. This budget has $9 billion in funding allocated to projects yet to be announced. And I think that's where you start to go, well, what are those projects and where are they going to land? I think that's one to keep an eye on, because when you start to see them going into those marginal electorates and those must-win electorates, that's where I think this government in particular has been very good at using public money, and very good, I use that phrase as it's totally corrupt and they shouldn't be allowed to get away with it at all. But there's also no funding in this budget for a federal independent commission against corruption. So that's not going to change in the near future. That's one of those areas where we are going to see that pork barreling vote buying going on in the lead up to the next election.
If everybody watching wants to check out all of the corrupt stuff that this government and other governments across the country have been up to, you can go to the Democrats website at democrats.org.au, click on Rorts Watch, and we update that watch every time some new and disgusting
It's a long
scandals.
list.
It's a huge thing. It's a
long list.
disturbingly long list. So-
It is a disturbingly long list. It boggles the mind, and the amount of money that is being channeled towards either political favourites or for vote buying is really obscene. It's just not something that we've seen in the past in Australia.
I mean, it's always happened, to a degree. There's always been that little, sort of rumbling of discontent. But this government in particular, to a degree. But under Scott Morrison, it has gone to it has skyrocketed, and it's gotten to the stage where they're not even pretending anymore. They're just being openly corrupt, and it's really disturbing.
It would be lovely to think that you were exaggerating and being hyperbolic there, but it's completely the case. It's just straight up the case. Take a look at that section of the Democrats' website. It's a non-exhaustive list, which should be eye-watering in itself. It's a non-exhaustive list.
Yes, and if you think that we've missed one, just email us at info@democrats.org.au and we'll add it to the list.